Will Joe ever find balance between being a devoted wife and mother and one kick-ass CIA operative?
Will Cruz find her purpose?
Is there any position in the government that Morgan Freeman hasn't portrayed?
And will the Marines take out a top terrorist bankroller?
Find out next as Red and Red Real Reviews takes on their mission of breaking down the Paramount Plus new military thriller series, Special Ops Lioness.
Question: what kind of bear is best?
When they say 2% milk, I don't know what the other 98% is.
That's a ridiculous question.
Who is it you think you see?
False. Black bear. Well, that's debatable.
You know nothing, don't you?
Allergies?
Cowardice and weak-willed men. And hazelnuts.
Who the hell are you?
You know.
Boy, have you lost your mind? Because I'll help you find it.
I didn't actually sell my last car, I just forgot where I parked it.
You have also heard the phrase, a Lannister always pays his debts.
That idea is literally the greatest idea I have ever heard in my life.
Randall, look at eye contact. You're gonna be cool, right?
Oh, baby, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow. You feel me?
Stop pooping.
You all know exactly who I am.
Act. Bears eat beets.
Woo! That's a brilliant plan, is it?
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Bears do not. Say my name.
That idea is terrible.
What is going on?
No, you clearly don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in.
Sexual history.
Epic and private.
I guarantee you, Toby, I've had it a billion times before. It goes like this.
Do you exercise?
Yes, lovemaking and woodworking.
Margarita, tequila soda, tequila rocks, tequila shot, hotel, sex, room service, shower sack, Uber. It's...
Oh my God.
Daddy.
That's gross. I love it.
It's hard to believe we're even the same species. Baba booey.
Welcome back into yet another latest and greatest episode of Red and Red Real Reviews. And we're looking at a very interesting one today. I didn't quite know from the name what it was, but as soon as I opened up in Paramount Plus, I saw that it was military based. So that kind of got me intrigued because I typically really like shows that are based on a military kind of theme. And it also took me a minute to realize that it was from the Yellowstone writer Taylor Sheridan, or maybe like put two and two together. Like I see his name, I'm like, oh right, Yellowstone.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of star power too in this one. I think it was advertised, really with Nicole Kidman and Zoe Saldana. Like those were the major players in this show. And I think I first heard of it maybe about a year ago. Britney Spears' ex-husband, Sam Asghari, he's kind of an actor, he thinks. And he was, talking about, oh, I'm working on this Lioness show, because he used to call Britney his Lioness. And, he was talking about how he was on this show. So obviously I assumed that he didn't have much of a part. And I was right, because he was one of when they go to the Hamptons, he was one of the friends. He was actually the one who hit on, who's the lesbian?
Bobby.
He hit on Bobby. So that was the role he played. He had
That's Britney Spears' ex-husband?
Yes, he had 2 lines in it, and he was hyping it up like, I'm going to be on this Taylor Sheridan show, like Lioness, like, hyping it up about his big role. And that's what it ended up being, is 2 lines. So another thing, it kind of sets the bar pretty high when you hear the name Taylor Sheridan. Yellowstone, not even just that, it's 1883, 1923, Tulsa King, which is another great show. So, it really does set the bar high. So, one thing that I noticed is, everyone looks so familiar, aside from the big stars, Nicole Kidman, obviously we know who she is. A side note, I didn't know Zoe Saldana had like a tilde in her name. So I think it's supposed to be Saldana. I don't know. I saw that in the credits, the tilde. So yeah, it's just, everyone looked familiar. Neil looked so familiar. So I'm looking up basically everybody as the show, comes on. And of course, Neil was the dead brother in the first, either the pilot or the second episode of Yellowstone. Lee, which we hardly remember him because he was hardly in it. And then the guy who played Two Cups, he's in like every Taylor Sheridan show. He was on Mayor of Kingstown. It's another great show. I forgot. It's a Taylor Sheridan show. It seems like Taylor Sheridan likes certain actors and he'll just put them in everything he does. So that was one thing that was really interesting to me. When I first started watching it, I just recognized everybody. Tex, I think, looked like he was from something. Who was the black gentleman with the beard?
Is that
he was in 1883. I think, wasn't he the man who like married the gypsy woman who lost her husband or something, or
okay, it's not
he was helping out the woman that lost her husband. So what was his name in Lioness? I can't even remember what his name was.
I couldn't catch his name along as Lioness was going, but they also, other than Bobby and Two Cups, they didn't mention their names to
Tex was the other guy with the beard. I couldn't remember what that guy's name was. He wasn't in it very much. Except for like the part where, they're talking about the club and he's like, I ain't going in there. I thought that was funny.
I almost thought, as far as like the recycling Yellowstone actors, I almost thought maybe it was Colby, one of the cowboys from Rips.
I don't know. I did
but I don't think so, because LaMonica Garrett's the actor's name, and he seems a little more big and buff than Colby was.
It seemed like,
cowboy.
Aside from all the stars, it seemed like almost every one of the supporting actors had been on a Taylor Sheridan show.
Yeah.
At least one, which is kind of crazy. And then Two Cups, he's been on probably them all. He was in Yellowstone too. He was one of the livestock agents or something.
Almost like a Christopher Nolan effect, or the Adam Sandler movies, where he kind of carries the
right,
same posse
or
HBO.
HBO uses a lot of the same actors in different shows.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the nitty gritty. I thought a big overall theme of this was internal conflict, and it starts off right off the bat with the initial plant that Joe has out in that Middle Eastern town, and her cover gets blown and she has to drop a missile down to preserve the mission and take out all the terrorists that they're trying to investigate. So it starts off right with that. Obviously, as we'll get into a little bit more, there's an internal conflict between Cruz, who's one of the lead SEALs. She winds up being the lead plant as the show progresses, and Aaliyah, the mark that's close to the terrorist organizers. But then there's also Joe and Neil's conflict at home, where they're always in and out, and Neil's got a stressful job in his own right as a surgeon. You've got the two heads of the operation, Caitlin Meade, who's Nicole Kidman's part, and then Byron, I'm not sure his last name, but I saw you wrote in the notes Doug from House of Cards. That's
right.
That's what I was thinking.
Doug Stamper. I remember his
Doug
first
Stamper,
and last
name. But so the two of them, Caitlin and Byron, their internal conflict between what their politician I don't want to say counterparts, but whoever that they're getting marching orders from, what the instruction that they give them, and then their commitment to the Lioness program. So I always feel like there's I felt like internal conflict was a consistent, steady theme throughout the show.
Yeah, a lot of drama, a lot of conflict, especially, a lot of conflict just within Joe's family. What Joe and Neil deal with, there's a lot of drama there because she hasn't been around to raise her kids. So Neil is the one that deals with the brunt of it. So yeah, a lot of conflict there between her and the oldest daughter, Kate. They have some definite issues, butting heads, and a lot of family issues.
There was one line very early on where she I just remember it was Caitlin or somebody else, but or maybe it was Kyle. He was asking Joe how the family was, and she's talking up Charlie, the younger daughter, and she's like, "Oh, she's doing so well in school and this and that." And Kate's a good kid or something something along those lines. I'm like, "Oh, something's there."
Yeah, okay, a question about Kyle. He looked really familiar too. I can't figure out what he's from, but one thing about him is I wasn't sure if he had been a past ex of Joe's or something. I don't know. Like when they first introduced him, it was kind of a little awkward between them. Like he was kind of like hitting on her. Like, I mean, it was clear they had some sort of history, but I guess it was just because they had worked together, like in the military. I'm assuming they kind of did put some tension in between them. Am I wrong? I don't know.
There was, I mean, it could have just been, especially with the whole like you do me a favor, I'll do you a favor thing as their operations kind of went along in the show. It made it there was kind of a consistent theme, like okay, they were kind of there, maybe they have a contentious relationship as far as asking each other to do things off the record that maybe not necessarily they should be doing. But to that point, there was a scene early on when Joe first comes home, or not when she first comes home, but when we see her first come home, the first instance of us seeing her come home, and she and Neil are talking and about like closeness. Are they still, do they still have feelings for each other? And they kind of insinuate that they get a little action on the side, but it's just to feel closeness. It doesn't mean anything. So I don't know, maybe to that point, maybe the prophesizing is maybe Kyle was Joe's kind of side piece.
Maybe now that you mention it, I'm kind of remembering a vague thing of there being a little bit of a hint that they had an open marriage or kind of an agreement or something. Now that I'm thinking about it,
yeah. But yeah, to me, I mean, all of these are really big. I mean, we'll get into them more. We'll discuss Neil more next, but I think the big one, of course, was Cruz and Aaliyah, because they obviously get closer and create this friendship, relationship, whatever, as the show goes along. And that's kind of an internal conflict to Cruz completing the mission and wanting to off this girl's father that she's getting very close to. So that's obviously a big conflict as well.
Yeah, it was like an internal conflict, but it was almost like, how we were talking about hijack, like, everyone doing their job to the fullest. It was kind of the overarching question was like, can you do your job? Like when it comes down to it, are you going to be able to buckle down and do what you have to do? I mean, you had Neil telling this 6-year-old girl's parents that she was, going to lose her eye and all this stuff. So, at the end of the day, are you going to stick to your duty, or are you going to try to get out of it? Or, and that seemed to be kind of the overarching question, especially with Joe, like seeing the impact that her job has on Kate and her kids. Is she going to continue doing that? She probably knows that she's going to continue doing it, but is she going to feel bad about it? Probably. I mean, that was always the internal conflict within her the whole time.
Yeah. The Neil thing, that was very early on. And that was, you felt from like, how do you tell a parent that you either have to enjoy that time with your child and she's gonna be gone, or take on this extremely risky procedure and basically mutilate her face.
Right. Yeah, that was tough. And then, when the father of the little girl like assaults Neil, like he understands, like he gets the message he has to deliver is hard, and he gets that. But yeah, pretty crazy. It's just, whenever Joe is coming home or when Neil is coming home, like they're both coming home with scrapes and bruises on their face.
Yeah. How was your day?
Yeah, right. When they were out by the pool, like, oh, I'm afraid to ask, but how has your day been?
Yeah. So obviously the main storyline of the show is the mission. The goals that Lioness goes at, the goals that Lioness program seeks to achieve. And they had this, they had that initial plan out there. The cover got blown. It wound up getting exaggerated. They had to detonate the site and kill the plant. And now Cruz comes in, and she's got this like kind of side story of being a little bit of a street rat, part to coin part of the expression from Aladdin. And she's in an abusive relationship. She busts out of there. She seeks refuge in this Marines recruitment store, and she winds up having a chip on her shoulder, goes through the Marine program, graduates with flying colors, and that catches the eye of Joe and the Lioness program. And as the progress of I don't know if maybe it was because we saw that initial scene where the plant's cover was blown, but we have this so I don't know if that got planted in the back of our minds that the main plot that we're watching throughout the show is going to get blown and not work out well. But we at least have that kind of doubt in our mind. So I don't know if like edge of the seat's kind of the right word as we're watching the lead show and Cruz's mission. But so that obviously that's the main show. But there were a lot of side stories in this, and which ones to you were kind of your favorite?
I liked, I did, it was heartbreaking, but I liked seeing Neil's life as a doctor, just seeing how they're both kind of like unintentionally ruining their kids' lives by their jobs that they have. And, seeing what kind of dad he is, to his girls when Joe is away. That was one of the more, I would say, captivating stories. I could tell you one side story that I didn't really understand why it was included, and I didn't really see it as being plausible. So when the daughter Kate gets into the car accident, she's going to like a cheerleading game or something. When she's in the hospital and, Neil, as her father, learns that she's pregnant, I was like, wait. She's 14 years old. Her dad is a doctor. Her mother is like quite high in the military. I can't see a 14-year-old who's that, with that affluent upbringing being pregnant at 14. Like, I just can't. That doesn't seem like a thing that is possible to me. Maybe 16, not 14. 14 is young. Like, those are the people that are living in the projects, like really, poverty-stricken situations. Like, did you find that a little weird?
No, but to that point, because I mean, why do we associate that to people in poor upbringings? Because there's kind of an absent parent structure, right? There's no kind of role models or guidance. And in this situation, in their house, yes, they live in this huge mansion, and yes, both parents make tons of money. But Neil's in and out on call all the time, in and out of the house, blah 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 blah. And Joe's on assignments left and right. She's gone for weeks, maybe months at a time. So there is still, even though they're in a more affluent upbringing, there is still kind of that absence of parent guidance, role model type of thing, where it's in and out. And like we see that when she gets suspended from school for the fight early on, and he picks her up, and she's chipping at him left and right in the car, and Joe gets home and says, "You need to apologize to your father," blah blah blah. She goes down, says the apology to him, and then walks by Joe and gives her some sarcastic answer like, "Was that good enough?" or something like that.
Yeah.
So like, I see where you're going, but I think a lot of our preconceived notions about that are because of the absence of role models and guidance figures. And in this situation, despite the fact that they're not in an impoverished state, there's still an absence, even though unintended as it were, of role models, because Neil's in and out of the house on calls to the hospital, and Joe's gone for weeks, months at a time on assignment.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I know a lot of people who like raise themselves, like, their parents aren't really around, like whether they're working 3 jobs, like I get that. But it did seem also like Neil had a great relationship with Kate. So that's what I just didn't understand. Like, he told Joe, I think he was like, "Oh yeah, we talked about it. The rules are that, keep your clothes on," or like, So it seemed like
nothing below the waist.
They had like a pretty open dialogue about things. So that's why I'm a little confused. And it just, of course, after their daughter had the surgery or whatever, they were like, oh, just so you know, like your baby's probably dead. Like, then they brought it up that one time, but after that, it was just kind of like, what was the point of having the 14-year-old be pregnant, like, and getting in the accident? I don't know. I just was kind of.
I think it was to bring the family back together because the family's initial identity in the early, for at least half the season, was a strange relationship. Joe and Neil having a strange relationship. Kate's got a authority problem with both parents, and she kind of has less of an authority problem with Joe, but it's still kind of not totally.
It's almost like they're equals or something. It's a weird dynamic, but I don't know. Like, to me, the car accident, like, her friends died. I mean, I don't know if she was the only one that survived, but I don't know how many people were in the car, but, there were fatalities in this car accident. So that was pretty serious to me. Like, she was in the hospital for a while. So couldn't that have been enough to bring the family together? Like it's a life or death situation. Like, why add the pregnancy thing? And I don't know. It didn't really seem a value to me.
It could have been an extra thing to add on, but it was to me, it was more the sum of the parts as opposed to one thing in particular. And I think that was that moment where Neil is talking to Kate when they're trying to prep her to surgery, and he tells her that Holly died. And he tells her about the pregnancy. It's like, listen, you're young, you shouldn't have to deal with these right now at your age, but now you are. Now we're dealing with them, and you make decisions, and there's consequences for them.
Right.
And I think, like, even if it doesn't necessarily have a true one-to-one tie to the show, I still think that's kind of a good message to put into a show to make people think about, hey, actions have consequences. It doesn't matter whether it's something as simple as stealing a magazine from the corner store,
right,
or having sex with your boyfriend in your parents' house because neither one of them are home and when you're 14 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or BSing with your friends out in the car and none of them should be driving and they're not paying attention, and guess what? You get T-boned. So I think even though it maybe not necessarily had a perfect one-to-one place in the show, I think it was still kind of an important message to put in as far as actions and accountability.
It was just added in as like a lesson.
Yeah, because we all know there's not a lot of accountability in the world today.
Yeah, true.
So throughout this mission, throughout the show, and throughout the mission they're undertaking to take out this terrorist leader, there's a lot of character development. There's a lot of relationships. Which ones were kind of your favorite? For me, the two that stick out to me, I mean, the Cruz Aaliyah one takes up a lot of oxygen on the show.
Yeah.
But and Joe and Neil takes up a lot of oxygen. So I won't necessarily go into those. I mean, you brought up Joe and Kyle a little bit. I think that's kind of a more subtle one. I think that Caitlin and Byron is a little bit more of a subtle one. So like, to me, the big ones were Joe and Caitlin. Because this kind of 1A, 1B alpha dog thing on the program.
Right.
And then the relationship between Cruz and Joe, because they both kind of have this tense nature towards each other.
Yeah, it is the one with Caitlin and Joe. Caitlin is kind of a mother type figure, I feel like, or like a mentor, I would say, but a very rough, or not really rough, but like a strict relationship. And it's kind of the same way with Joe and Cruz. Like, Joe, shows that she is protective of Cruz at the club scenario.
Yeah.
When Cruz gets drugged, and that was badass. That whole scene, that was awesome. I loved that.
When they're running that scuzz bag down in the forest.
Yes. They all just like banded together to save her. Like, I thought that was awesome. And leading up to the club, like when they were all in the car talking, or like, as they're hearing the talking, they're like, this is ridiculous, when they're listening to the conversation. That was cool. But yeah, those like kind of protective but stern relationships between women, like that they respect each other and they are protective of each other, even if they aren't like all mushy gushy about it.
Yeah, which I mean is, I guess, kind of in a certain way, an act to kind of break stereotypes. So to see women portraying these roles that are more kind of hardened, military type of portrayals and on screen.
Yeah, definitely. Nicole Kidman's character Caitlin was very like a hard ass, very stern and stiff and ice cold.
Speaking of which, side note, I hadn't necessarily put too much thought into this, but before we started this, when we were talking about what shows to review, and you said, "Oh, Nicole Kidman's in this," but she never does any great roles. Did this kind of what's the word?
I mean,
not comeuppance, but
I wouldn't say it was a lead role.
Faith, maybe.
No, I mean, she did Big Little Lies, which was great. She did what was the show with Hugh Grant? That was a great show too.
Show?
I think she did good with that. Yeah, but she's done a couple like HBO shows that are good, but I think we were talking about her more from the movie standpoint, where the movie's gonna tank in most circumstances, but she fits in really well, like in dramatic roles for TV. I think she does really well with TV. So maybe we'll see more of that from her instead of like going for these movie roles, which kind of end up being duds.
Yeah. And I thought like in the last 2 episodes, his role kind of grew a little bit more, but I thought it was so funny. Like they sold the show with Morgan Freeman in it. And through the first 6 episodes, he wasn't in it till the 6th one. And the scene was like 2 minutes long. I was like, did you sell the show with Morgan Freeman in it?
He was hardly in it. I mean, I would say Zoe Saldana was, and I mean, no offense to Zoe Saldana, but she's not like a big ticket actor. You know what I mean? She was in Crossroads with Britney Spears. She was in Guardian of the Galaxy, where she was kind of a side character. She is not really in a lead actress position. So this was kind of the first time we got to see, like, I think she has the chops for it. Like, I mean, I didn't have any problems with her acting being unconvincing or terrible or anything. I mean, I think she has the chops for it. It's just, she probably hasn't had the chance to be in a lead actress role until now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought she did a very good job in this as well. Like you said, was convincing, acting was on point.
She had to carry it. She was the lead.
Yeah. And she had to, really sell herself with the scene where they abduct Cruz, or fake abduct Cruz, I guess. And put her through the waterboarding kind of climate
hazing.
Yeah, they put her that. So she's like, I want to see if I could break her. And she has a little conflict with the other operative leader. She's like, stop him. Like, nope, gotta see if I can break her.
She now that I'm thinking, I think she was in one other movie in like 2006 or 2007, 2005 or 2006, where she was sort of not a fighter, but she did have a very action based role. I can't remember what that was, but I think that, and I don't think that movie really like took off and did extremely well. It's not Domino. No, that was Keira Knightley, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Keira Knightley.
Why am I thinking Domino? No, I can't think of the name of it, but she was like, I think she was a fighter and kind of badass. So, I mean, this, she had to look like she knew what she was doing, being, in the military and being serious about surveillance and combat and things like that.
Yeah. So speaking of this mission that she's leading, it seemed like it went along pretty steady. Like a lot of the roadblocks throughout the course of the show on the mission were more like internal. And they're more like side stories that were distracting, like Kyle's Kyle's sting down in Mexico was off to the side, but it wasn't really affecting the Lioness mission.
Mhm.
So throughout the course of the mission, did you think, especially with all the conflict the Cruz was dealing with, did you think that there was any question that she was going to be able to finish the job and take out her target?
I don't know, it was questionable because, you know, when she came on with the Lioness crew, she, you know, she's pretty tough. The way she went through the Marines, like she was the one doing 20 pull-ups or whatever it was. So she's a pretty tough broad, but I don't know. I kind of had my doubts about it. I kind of thought that she would mess it up because of her feelings. Like she wasn't, yes, she was tough and she was physically tough, but I don't think she was really equipped for that mentally. And that's what I think it was, and that's what gave me pause. I don't know. What about you?
I don't think I necessarily thought that she would fail at the mission, but I thought I was expecting that there was going to be a moment coming up where it was going to be an easy opportunity to off this guy, and she was going to whiff on it or pass it up, like have some doubt where she doesn't execute. And then it was going to go on a little bit longer, and it was going to be a little bit more of a contentious situation to try and complete the mission. Like I definitely didn't think it was going to happen in the kitchen. I thought it was going to be like on the wedding altar and have it be like some bloody, gory mess in this grandiose ceremony, and she dives off the platform into the water to escape.
You know what? I did not. When she went down to the kitchen, I was like, oh, Aaliyah's going to go down there and talk to her, be like, wait, come back. Like, that's what I thought it was going to be when this old guy shows up. I'm like I didn't really know that was going to go into that. So that was pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, part of me too, like, didn't necessarily think that she was going to screw it up. Maybe it was just that the situation would get screwed up. Like, you know, he didn't end up being there, or you know, maybe she talked to Aaliyah and Aaliyah would be like, oh, like, you know, would tell her some piece of information that like would not, where the mission wouldn't be possible, basically. Like, I thought that something would throw a wrench in the plan somehow, even if she didn't screw it up.
Yeah. And even in that kitchen, because at that point, the only time we had seen the target was maybe like little digital images or that one satellite image where you just see a white body down on the patio. You don't really see his face. So when she first encounters him in the kitchen, I'm like, is that him? Is that him?
Yeah, I was like that. I was like, he's an old dude. It has to be him. But that was I mean, props to her for following through. Like, that was insane. Like eating gelato and then you know, stabbing the shit out of her fiance, Aaliyah's fiance, and then taking the old man. Like, oh my God, I can't believe she did that.
She was no prisoners.
Yeah, I guess she really did follow through. Like, damn.
So, all right, hot take time. Boy, let's see if we get banned on YouTube, I guess.
I know.
This was a very, as this show went along, whether it was the mission itself, or Kyle's side operation, his thing, it kind of did have a machismo undertone. You know, it is a military type theme, and it kind of followed that to a certain extent for most of the show. But like, as the relationship between Cruz and Aaliyah got a little closer, the show wound up without its little share of woke. So where was
the point where it all went to shit?
Yeah, like what this moment where Aaliyah and Cruz have this like dawning on, like, oh, maybe we're in love with each other, and they share this kiss, and then that goes on from there. Like, what? Why?
I can tell you where it was for me, where for me it was the conversation that they had, kind of where they were identifying with each other. I think it should have stopped there after that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found that conversation to be really like heartbreaking and truthful, where I think Aaliyah says something to her like, oh, well, you know, can you name 5 friends? Name 5 friends for me. And she, you know, notices that she's silent. She's like, can you even name one? And she's like, I couldn't either. Like that was really sad that they were just both very alone and very independent, and, you know, didn't even have a name of a friend that they could recall. And that's where it should have stopped for me, because up until that point, I thought the show was pretty neutral. Like I had a favorable opinion of the show, and it had so much potential and it could have been great. And, you know, at that episode 6, that's when it was extreme eye roll for me. I was like, we're doing this. Like, I actually, like, I'm very disappointed in Taylor Sheridan. Like, I am disappointed in him for all his other shows have not been woke, but then he does it with this one. Like, why? Like, is he giving in? Is he like kowtowing to the pressure of this agenda? Like, when he hasn't with his other shows? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and before anyone jumps in the comments with all these 2 genders, they just don't like gay people or whatever. No,
right.
I don't have a problem. I don't have one damn problem making a gay character. Bobby is hilarious.
Yeah.
That scene with
Sam Asghari.
Yeah. When he's walking up to her and he's like, you know,
she's like, don't even bother.
Don't even bother. Yeah. I was rolling. It was hysterical. So, like, you know, you know, if you have to do the representation thing and write a gay character in the show, write the gay character into the show.
Right.
Don't have an established character just flip the switch in the middle of an episode.
Yes. You know what? That was the part that bothered me, I think. The fact that, okay, so they show, you know, Cruz when she's living with, they also insinuate that she was a stripper in the past, don't they? They refer to her being and that's why she was working in fast food, because she's like, I don't want to do this anymore, because they said something about you're on the pole, or they made her a-hole boyfriend made some reference to her dancing.
I think it was because all his friends were dating strippers, so his friends were like, you need to dump this one and get someone else.
See, I thought it seemed like she was maybe trying to do the right thing by working fast food, like because she had left being a stripper, and then she's got this like terrible abusive, you know, boyfriend. So that was the problem for me. Like, not like just because you have an abusive boyfriend and you have this idea of men that's unfavorable, you're just going to be like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be a lesbian now. Like, what?
And there was also this scene where Cruz and Aaliyah are talk when they're just kind of bonding at the Hamptons, and they're like, well, what's your perfect idea of a man? Blah 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 blah. And one of the early scenes when they first made contact in the Louis Vuitton store, and she walks up to him, and, you know, Aaliyah's looking at the necklace, and Cruz asks if she's gonna buy it for herself, and she's like, oh no, you know, I wait for the man to buy it for me or something. And Cruz says, where I come from, if you wait for a man to buy you jewelry, you'll never have any jewelry. So it's like there's no evidence throughout the show that they're bi or they're lesbian or they're questioning their sexuality. Like, there's no evidence for that. So it was just like a 180 moment out of the blue.
Right. That's why what bothered me, like you said, it turned on a dime. Like, that came out of nowhere. Like, I mean, what are the chances that is the moment that she decides, oh, well, I'm pansexual and I don't care, you know, what someone is. I just love, like, I fell in love with like, I don't get that. Like, it seemed very quick, and I didn't like that.
Like, I don't know. And I don't know I don't know how that serves that community anyway, because haven't we been spending the last 20, 30, 40 years trying to convince society that being gay is not a choice? That's the way you're born.
Right.
So, like, for Hollywood to write in these flip a light switch kind of changes in sexuality, I feel like that doesn't serve the gay community.
Right. It's very inauthentic and very disgenuine, and it doesn't really speak to like the struggles that they go through. It doesn't really empower them at all.
No, yeah, no, I completely agree. It doesn't flow with the story. It doesn't look like it's serving the actual people in the real world that would apply to. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's just the only thing is, you know, if they hadn't built that conflict into the story, I mean, what, like, to me, if you're like, if I'm really vibing with someone, like as a friend, like I would think that a friendly bond is enough to have a connection to somebody where, like, you know, what if she was talking about fond, you know, if it hadn't turned all lesbian, and, you know, Aaliyah's talking about fond memories of, oh, my dad and my sisters, we would do this. Like, you know, wouldn't you feel bad that like you have to kill her dad? Like, I feel like it just could have been, you know, a different kind of bond could have been explored just as effectively.
And she did do that. She did feel bad that she was killing her dad. So like they could have just removed this whole thing and kept and the story would have been the same.
Yeah, and then I mean, maybe that's what they had to do for like her fiance to get involved. Like, I don't know how. Yeah. I mean, but couldn't he have found out some other way? Like, oh shit, she's in the military, she's a Marine. Like, yeah. I feel like they could have done that some other way than having him be like, oh, well, I know you like my wife and tough luck. Like, what?
Cruz is not exactly a very subtle person when it comes to speaking her emotions. I'm sure she would have mouthed off to Aeson anyway.
Yeah, like they could have done that a different way. Like, I just think there was a different way. Like, it didn't have to be cheapened like that. And to me, that's what it felt like. It just really cheapened that whole thing, and it just, all the potential of the show went poof for me in the last 2 to 3 episodes.
Yeah. And ironically enough, there were other little itty bitty moments in the show where you thought it wasn't going to be woke. Like when they're on Kyle's operation, they said, hey, are we going to get caught down here by the feds? And he said something like, oh, this administration doesn't care about the border security or whatever. And when they're questioning Byron, when the White House is questioning Byron as far as the intel and taking the operations, and they were like, oh, don't come at me shaming me when you were sitting on 9/11 intelligence that whole time, that sort of thing. So it's like,
oh, I didn't even notice that.
There were like little itty bitty references where they weren't exactly, they were like, they're jokes that weren't exactly paying homage to wokeness. So it just kind of,
and Taylor Sheridan's other shows, they're not, I mean, the most woke thing he has is like, you know, the girl in Yellowstone who's pretty much like a PETA advocate, you know, like the vegan girl or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's a little bit like eye roll, but like it's not like really advocating for that stuff. So it's not very woke. Like that's the closest he gets. So why did he just go all in for this show? I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, on a lighter note, to give our kind of parting thoughts on the show, I thought we'd set it up with talking some quotes, because there were a lot of memorable quotes from this. They weren't necessarily all funny ones, but I thought they were like profound ones.
Yeah.
So when, for example, the first one I wrote down was when they're putting Cruz through the fake torture kind of thing, or I guess the torture wasn't fake, but the fake abduction, and Joe's advocating towards keeping it going because she wants to see Cruz's breaking point, and the other lead says, I just or someone said I want to give her a shot, and says suicide missions don't have a shot Joe, hence the name. Stuff like that. Or when they come back from, I think it was when they came back from Kyle's sting, and Joe goes to the hospital to see Kate, and she's kind of got a couple little bruises on her face. And Neil says to her, did ISIS come to Baltimore, Joe, or did I marry a fucking hitman? You know, like stuff like that. I like they were like some of them that has a little bit of a lighter sense to it, but at the same time, it also is kind of a serious, heavy note on the theme of the show.
Yeah.
Did you have any that stand out?
No, I mean, I think, a few of the ones that you noted, I think that Caitlin's, as that like mother figure mentor, I think even like Byron, like his exchanges with Morgan Freeman, I think that those, characters were meant to be very profound. I think it's when Caitlin, whether she's about to kill the old man, basically, and they're waiting to hear for word, and Joe's phone is ringing and it's Neil, and Caitlin says to Joe, you will never get back to them if you keep thinking about them. Isn't that what she says?
Yeah.
And she basically like, give me your phone, like but she's kind of protecting her, like you know better, like kind of being protective of her, like she's not just doing it to be a jerk, like it's kind of a profound thing, like if you look at that phone that this is going to be harder for you, so please like don't do that.
Your mind's not going to be on the mission, and
your mind's not going to be
stupid and get shot.
Yes, your mind is not going to be in the right place, and things are going to go awry.
Yeah. The other ones, some of the other ones I wrote down, when they're off on this thing, Cruz is with them, and they got to rejoin the op. And this was I think this was probably like right before she goes to the Hamptons, and she says, "What do I tell Lee? It's been 3 days." And I don't think it was Joe. I think it was Caitlin that said, "Tell her the truth. The best lies are wrapped in it." And I was like,
It might have been Joe, where she was like, talk about real people, like just don't, get into like details, but like talk about real people that because that's going to sound real.
Yeah.
Talk about real things, talk about real experiences.
Yeah. And then because Aaliyah has a lot of second guesses about the wedding and that sort of thing. And when she's explaining to Cruz how it works, when she's explaining to Cruz how it works, and Cruz was like, "They choose your friends too," and Aaliyah just says, "Probably they choose it all." And that's kind of shining a light on the whole arranged marriage thing that's still happens a lot in a lot of places in the world. And I thought at the end, of course, when the last one that stood out to me was at the end, mission's done. They evac, they get Cruz out of there on the boat, they get far off, and she and Joe have it out on the boat. And she goes like, "I can't do this. I'm not you. My heart isn't a weapon. My body isn't a tool." So, and the other thing that quote does for me is it makes me wonder where this show is going forward. Because I kind of had it in my head, like if this is a success and they get out of it, the team is a unit. The team can come back and try to execute another mission. But Cruz kind of has been emotionally beaten down by this, despite the fact that she's still a machine.
Right, she did it. She
She
followed through and she did it. Yeah, that's why I thought it was also interesting that she said that, because she's basically like, "Oh, well, I'm not meant for this," but like you just achieved, the mission. So I thought that was kind of ironic that she said that, like, I'm not built for this. Like, this is just not what I can do. And she did it.
Yeah. And on top of that, even before the mission, Joe was like, "This is my last op. This is my last op. I'm not doing this again. I'm coming home, taking a desk job, whatever." So like that, those are other things that kind of made me question, like, is this show going to go forward, or is this just a one-off? Like, if Cruz is not feeling it and Joe doesn't want to do it anymore, then like, where's the show going?
I think it's just a one-off, but if it were to continue, I would think that Cruz would be like maybe there's a replaceable like asset or whatever they called Cruz, because Aaliyah was the mark, was Cruz the asset. So maybe they would just like replace the asset each season for like, and then like each season would cover a mission. But honestly, after those last few episodes, I'm like, is this is this story worth continuing? And second of all, I don't know.
If it comes back, great. If it doesn't, I won't be sad.
Right. If it gets canceled, I won't be surprised.
Yeah.
It could just be like a limited series. I'm not sure.
Well, don't cancel us. Make sure you stay up to date with Red and Red Real Reviews on all our production platforms. If you like seeing our ginger hair and faces, watch the video version on YouTube and on Rumble. If you're busy running around in the car, going to work, doing chores around the house, and just want to listen to our lovely voices, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. Hit the dial on that, as they used to say in the biz, and keep it tuned to there. Make sure you follow along with both of us on Instagram and TikTok. My partner, Binge the Ginge, with dots between each word, and myself, Nutmeg2 Palmetto, that is one word with the number 2. Until the next real review, Red and Red, signing off.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What?
Do what?
I'd like to be pimps from Oakland or cowboys from Arizona, but it's not Halloween.
Let the dogs out, you know, like, who let the dogs out? Who brought this guy along?
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
Grow up, Peter Pan. Count Chocula.
X never, ever marks the spot.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
All right. Then you do us proud. Because I don't want no scrubs.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission.
Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love for you. None but love for you.
10. X marks the spot.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Peace!
Fire, you son of a...
Toodaloo, motherfucker.
Hey, you ain't too proud to beg.
Come on.
What?
It's not funny anymore.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying to be
references.
I don't. Still, nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.